Witam Was serdecznie, moi drodzy, z tej strony Radek, autor bloga książkowego Pilny Czytelnik. Wakacje są z pewnością takim okresem, który pozwala m.in. na nadrobienie zaległości czytelniczych, ale także na obejrzenie ciekawego wywiadu z pisarzem. Moim dzisiejszym gościem, a zarazem pierwszym pisarzem zagranicznym, którego mam przyjemność siebie gościć, jest Chrisem Carterem, pochodzący z USA, autor mocnych i mrocznych powieści kryminalnych, a dokładnie twórca bestsellerowego cyklu z Robertem Hunterem, liczącego obecnie 13 części, z czego ostatnia część pod tytułem Obserwator śmierci ukazała się w naszym kraju 23 października 2024 roku. Hi Chris, nice to see you and thank you very much for accepting the invitation on the interview.
Oh, thank you for having me. Pleasure.
For started, I would like to tell you that I love the series of Robert Hunter, and in my opinion, is the one of the best criminal in the last years. And I'm very glad I can make the interview with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Before we get talking about the series of Robert Hunter, I would like to tell you first what event made you decide to become a writer.
Well, it was not a decision. I had a dream. I mean, I never wanted to be a writer. It was never part of my, I think most of the writers I've ever met, they always wanted to write. When they were little kids, they were always writing short stories, or they used to read a lot. They loved books, and it was part of their life. This was never me. When I was a kid, I played football in school, and I was into music. It was a completely different thing. And then many years later, without ever, I never really got into, I mean, I read, but I wasn't a crazy guy for books like most people I know now are. But I had this one dream about a story, which was different, because my dreams are always crazy. And this dream was a story, like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I woke up and I was very surprised. And I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, I dreamt this story, really strange. So I told her the story, and she said, sounds like a good story. You should write it. And I was like, okay. And that was it. I mean, I just said, okay. And the next day I decided to try to write the story that I had in my dream. And this is no experience. I never written a short story in my life. I never written anything, but I said, okay, I'm going to write this dream down. And that's how it started. That's what started the thing to write a book. And it became The Crucifix Killer. It became the first book in the series.
And did you read so many books when you was at school?
I didn't read that much. In school, I read because certain subjects, so for example, English, you have to read books every now and then. So I read the books that they asked me to. But as on my private time, I never read. Reading wasn't my thing. I was always out on the street playing football. I was born in Brazil, so growing up in Brazil, you play football everywhere. So all my free time, I was riding a bicycle, I was playing football, I was out with my friends. I was not reading. Reading was never my thing. Back then, I'm very old, so back then there were no video games. My childhood was in the 70s. So yeah, so reading was never something very big in my life, and that's how surprising it is. It still isn't. I think I read about one book a year now. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, surprise.
I know.
Okay, Chris, and why did you decide to write the dark of crime books?
Well, the stream that I had that I told you, it wasn't a crime story. It was a completely different story. So when I sat down to write this book, or to write a story, I didn't know if it would be a book, if it would be a short story. I paused and I thought to myself, so okay, I never wanted to write a book or a story, but here I am writing a story, and this story is not crime. And I thought, because of my experience in my previous job, I was like, I could probably come up with a crime story a lot easier and better than I can come up with a dream. So I decided to do another chapter of a crime story. I didn't have the story in my head. I just wanted to write a chapter that would be a good opening chapter for a crime story. Then I gave it to my girlfriend at the time, the first chapter of the dream story and the first chapter of this crime story. And she said, the crime one is more exciting, of course. And that's how it started. It wasn't anything prepared. So for the beginning of the Crucifix Killer, I didn't even have the story. I was just writing a chapter after another chapter, but I didn't have the story in my head. I was like, okay, if this happens on chapter 1, what would happen on chapter 2? Without thinking, because to be honest, I didn't think I would finish the book. I thought, I'm going to write maybe 5, 10 chapters, and then people are gonna go, nah, it's not good, throw it away. So I wasn't really worried about coming up with a story. I was like, okay, this is chapter 1, so what would happen on chapter 2 if this happened in chapter 1? So to me, it was like putting a piece of the puzzle, right? This goes here, what goes next? Okay, this fits, what goes next? Oh, okay, this fits. But that was it. And then after a few chapters, everybody was going, I really like this, you should continue. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to come up with a story now because I don't have a story. And that's how the Crucifix Killer came. So the idea to write about crime is because my experience with crime was huge. And I knew how the police worked. I knew how investigations move. So it's like, it's easier for me to write about crime. And a lot of people say for writers, write about what you know, because it makes it easier. So that's the how I started writing about crime. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. And how much of a help for you writing books it is that you work at as a criminal psychologist?
How much of a? What was the question?
How much help of you
Oh,
writing the books it is that you work at as a criminal psychologist?
yeah. Well, of course, it helped a lot. All the books, they every single book in the Hunter series talks a
Mhm.
lot about criminal psychology. Even so much so that Hunter himself, he is an ex-criminal psychologist turned detective. So I always add a lot of criminal psychology because it is very interesting. You know, when you're talking about a crime story, obviously you have Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes, which were like fantastic, but they are always about the who done it. It's like, who was the killer? Was it the
Mhm.
the chauffeur? Was it the maid? Was it? And the who done it could be anybody, and nobody's gonna argue. You're not gonna say, oh, it could not have been the doctor. It can be anybody. But I think the most interesting for people, what people really want to know is why they did it, not the who, the why. It's like,
Mhm.
why is this person drawing a, I don't know, butterfly on the head of the victim? They want to
Mhm.
know that. They want to know what is going on in the person's head. So all of my books have a lot of the criminal psychology, a lot about why the person will do something crazy like that, how the person break, what can happen in a person's life that would change that person to become a evil person, or he wants to hurt other people. So um all of my books, all of them, even the new book that's going to come out next year is a standalone. It's not a Hunter book. It's my first ever non-crime book, and it has a lot of psychology inside. So I think psychology is the most important part in my books.
Mhm. And what event inspired you to write the Robert Hunter series?
Well, it was exactly that. I had to write. I decided to write a crime novel instead of writing my dream, and I needed to come up with a detective. So I just created Hunter out of the blue. Like I said, I didn't have a story. I just like, okay, I need a detective, so I created him. So it wasn't anything um pre-prepared, or I had thought too much about it. I didn't really think that much about it. Just like, I need a detective, so I created Hunter. That was it.
Okay. And why did you pause the action in your books in the Los Angeles and not in another city?
Oh, because when I started writing, this is 2007, around 2007, 2008. Um, we didn't really have internet the way it is now. We have internet then, but we didn't really have Google Maps. We didn't have, Google Earth. So one, I knew better how the American police works, because it's a very different, even though I was living in England, the British police, the British investigation is very different than the American investigation. The way the courts go, the way the police works. So if I had to write a book based in London, I needed to learn how the police in the UK worked. And I was like, I'm very lazy. So it's like, I know how the American works. Plus, I always thought Los Angeles is a great city because you have everything there. You can write a book about a crime against the elite, like the super artists or the musicians, and you have the gangs, and it's a crazy city. So you have so much scope to write about different things. And I had lived in LA. And like I said, there was no Google Earth or Google Maps. So if you read The Crucifix Killer again, you see that everything happens around North Hollywood. And Hollywood, because that's where I used to go all the time, was Hollywood. So I know the area. Now I can write a book about Toronto, and I never even been to Toronto, and I can tell you exactly where things are because you can just look on Google Maps. So the idea was use a familiar place. So Los Angeles was familiar to me, and use the investigation process that I understood, which was the American investigation process. So that was the reason that I based the books in Los Angeles.
Okay. And is there really a department where works Robert Hunter and Carlos Garcia?
No, the ultra-violent crimes unit is a made-up unit. There is the robbery homicide division, and then I think they have a homicide special, which I think it changed the name. To be honest, when I wrote The Crucifix Killer, I used the original name, and I think it was called Homicide Special. And then I know that name changed, but I created a different name. I created the Ultra-Violent Crimes Unit. So that unit doesn't really exist. But there is a specific unit inside the LAPD that deals with pretty much the same thing, which is specialized crime. So which means that it's just crimes that require a very long investigative time, or crimes that deal with very important people. It's not really only about serial killers. You know, the ultra-violent crimes unit I use about serial killers, but no. So the UVC unit of the ultra-violent crimes is a made-up unit. It doesn't really exist. No.
And how long did you research for each book with Robert Hunter?
It depends on the book. It depends what the book talks about. So when I have to, because the books talk a lot about criminal psychology, that I don't research very much because I have the knowledge of that. But for example, forensics, when I have to talk about forensics or medical procedures or all this, then I research quite a lot. The new book that I'm writing, there was a lot of, I mean, even on in the Death Watcher, the last one, the something is Mierti, whatever he said. That one, there's a lot of things inside the autopsy room. So that book I had to research a lot because my understanding of forensics is not great. So it depends on the book. Some books there's a lot of research, and some books very little. So I don't have a schedule, and I research as I need. No, like I'm gonna write a chapter, and then I was like, okay, I need to put something about forensics here. Then I research. So it varies from book to book.
And you was sure from the beginning okay, again. Were you sure from the beginning that your main hero will be the policeman?
Well, you'll be a detective, yes. If I'm writing about that was the main reason why I made Hunter an ex-criminal psychologist, because I wanted to use criminal psychology in the books, like I said, but I didn't want to do something that I've seen a lot in films and a lot in books, is when you have the detectives, and the detectives use a separate criminal psychologist, right? To me, that would be too much of a mess. It's like detective and criminal psychology. So it's like, I'm gonna put both in one. So I made Hunter an ex-criminal psychologist, who is a detective. So I obviously, for you to write a police book or a crime thriller, you need a detective. So it was easy to create them. So I just, like I said, it was easier for me to make two in one instead of having two separate characters. So that's why I made Hunter a criminal psychologist or ex-criminal psychologist.
Did you want to present the Robert Hunter as man very talented and with big knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, on the first book, he wasn't. The idea for the first book was a bit different. So when I finished the original manuscript, at the end of the book, Hunter doesn't win. Hunter dies. In the Crucifix Killer, the original The Crucifix Killer, Hunter dies in the end. But my agent, when he read he goes, okay, I love your book, but your ending doesn't work. And I was like, why? He goes, well, because your detective dies. He said, of course it doesn't work. But it wasn't supposed to be a series. Look, like I said, I had never written a book in my life. I didn't even think I would ever get a book deal, right? I was not thinking, oh, I'm gonna write 20 books of this. I was just like, I'm gonna write a book, right? And then my agent said, have you thought about making this a series? I was like, no. And he said, can I suggest that you do? And I was like, why? I said, two reasons. One, it's easier to sell to a publishing house a series than sell an individual book. So he said, and number two, he said, I really, really like your detective. And I think your detective can be a series detective. You know, he would be great. So I had to go back and change a lot of the Crucifix Killer. And Hunter wasn't so intelligent on the first book. So that's when I said, okay, if I'm going to make this character a serious detective, also I'm going to make him intelligent, obviously. So then I had to go back and change a lot in the book, make him intelligent, say that he the PhD and all that kind of thing. So there was a big rewrite on the first book because of that. So that was the idea. So when I created Hunter, he was a complete different character. So I had to change him because my agent asked to. That's why.
And why does your hero have such a name and surname? Does it have any special meaning?
You know what? Again, that was not my name. So I created the name Robert, but his surname was a different name on the first book. And then again, so my agent, he's a very good agent. He agents like Lee Child and Martina Cole and John Connolly. He's a big agent. So he had a lot of experience, and I had zero experience. So when he suggested make Hunter a serious detective, I was like, okay. So everything that he suggests, I said, okay, because he had the experience, I didn't. I was like, whatever you tell me, I will take on board, because you are the one who knows everything about the publishing business. I have no idea. So he said, I like your detective a lot, but his name is not good. I was like, you don't like Robert? He goes, no, I like Robert. He said, you can keep Robert. I don't like the surname. I don't remember what the surname was, but it wasn't Hunter. And then we all tried different names, and it was suggested by a girl that worked for my agency. She is now a big agent in the country, but she is the one who suggested. Her name is Camilla Bolton, and Camilla was the one who came with the idea. Said, why don't we call him Hunter? Exactly because of that. Let's use a surname that has a meaning as well as it could be a name. And in America, you have so many of these names. John Black, something Diamond. You have all that. So it's very easy for you to come. So Camilla suggested Robert Hunter. Sounds pretty good. And I was like, well, okay, I like it. So everybody liked it. So it wasn't my idea, but yes, the decision to make a surname that has a second meaning, it was thought of. It was the idea, but it wasn't my choice. It wasn't my idea. Let's put it this way.
There are moments when Robert, to the other hero's question, where does he get his knowledge on given topic? His answer reads a lot.
Yeah.
Did you want to show in this way what benefits reading books gives?
No, no, actually, the idea for that is because I've had friends in school as well that they were very intelligent and stuff. And sometimes when you're out and you're in public or you're in a party or in a pub and somebody says something and you have the knowledge and you respond very quickly, right? A lot of people think that you're trying to be superior because you know the answer or something like that. And a lot of people say, how do you know that? And instead, I always thought you'd be horrible if Hunter said, oh, because I have a very high IQ. That's not a good answer. So for him to end the conversations, like to move the things fast, because as a detective, he's going to be talking to people, right? So he wants to get the answers fast. He doesn't want to be asked questions. He wants to ask the questions. So when somebody asks him, oh, how do you know that? The very fast and easy answer that will stop any more questions is I read a lot. That's it, right? So how do you know that the capital of Turkey is Ankara? It's like I read a lot. That's it. You don't have to say, oh, I studied the map. I read a lot. So it came, and again, it was a suggestion from my agent. He said, how about you create a catchphrase for your detective, which is I read a lot, and it has become a catchphrase. I have people that created like bookmarks like this. I don't even say this. I read a lot. It's something about Chris Carter, but it says I have people that created stuff that says I read a lot. I have a hat that says I read a lot. Somebody gave it to me. There are shirts and everything. So when you create a catchphrase like that, it helps your main character. So yeah, the idea was just to make him answer the questions very easy, very fast, without having to say that he is very intelligent. That's it.
And what was your inspiration for creating Robert Hunter's professional partner, Carlos Garcia?
Again, there's no really inspiration. He needed a partner. Most detectives in the United States, they don't work alone. They always have somebody, simply because it's also more secure. You're not going to investigate something by yourself. You always have to have somebody with you. So I needed to create a partner for Hunter. So to me, it was easy. I was like, I'm going to give him somebody, again, because Hunter is part myself, like criminal psychologist. So I knew Hunter. So the Carlos, I was like, I'm going to make him Brazilian because I was born in Brazil, long hair. So it was half. So I just needed to create a partner for Hunter. That's it. It was not a big inspiration or anything. I just like, I'm going to create a partner, and that was Garcia.
And what character traits did you pass on from yourself, Robert Hunter and Carlos Garcia?
Well, again, okay, now more and more, but at the beginning, so the insomnia, for example, so Hunter doesn't sleep very much. He's got insomnia. I have terrible insomnia. I'm like terrible. Like this morning, I've been awake since 1 o'clock in the morning, but every day, this is every day of the week, I'm awake by 2:30 in the morning, every single day. So insomnia, as Robert Hunter, he's a criminal psychologist. I was ex-criminal psychologist. He likes whiskey. I like whiskey. He likes rock music. I like rock music. Carlos was the other part. So he's got long hair. I got long hair. He's Brazilian. I'm Brazilian. So he has a little bit of a funny side. He likes telling jokes. So I did that. I divided a little bit, some into Robert, some into Carlos. But now, the longer the series has moved on, the more like Robert Hunter I am, or the more Hunter is like me. So yeah, so there's a little bit of me on both.
And in your books, Robert and Carlos chase different murders. And what made you devote 2 books chase the same murder, which is Lucien Folter?
Say that again. So what about Lucien?
Lucien Folter.
Yeah.
Robert and Carlos chase him in 2 books. Why?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So when I wrote An Evil Mind, which is book 6 in the series, which is the first book that Lucien appears, that was a very, very different book, and I was very concerned that people wouldn't like it, because from book 1 to book 5 in the series, Hunter is chasing a serial killer who is out in Los Angeles, and they have to find. And I only reveal who the serial killer is at the end of the book. An Evil Mind starts with a killer being arrested, right? And there is no chasing around. They're not looking for the killer. They already have the killer. It's a much more psychological book. It's a much more dialogue book. So I thought people were going to hate this because they are used to my stories being about chasing a serial killer. And this book was very different. But the opposite happened. People absolutely loved An Evil Mind, which was like became one of my best-selling books. It was my best-selling book at the time. And I was at my publishing house, Simon and Schuster, and the CEO from my publishing house at the time was there, and he came talk to me, and he said, "I just read your latest book, and I loved it, and my daughters love it." And then he said to me, he said, "Lucien Folter," he said, "amazing character. He has to come back," right? So when the CEO from your publishing house tells you that a character has to come back, the character comes back. So that was because the CEO said he has to come back. So it's like, okay. So I started thinking of how can I make Lucien come back. So I did it on book 10, Hunting Evil. And I was very concerned as well, because when you have a sequel, sometimes the sequel is not as good as the first one. There's so many films like that you have a good film, and then number 2 is like, what? So, and when that happens, people go, oh, he shouldn't have written a sequel because now the first one doesn't sound so good because the second one is so bad. But I was very lucky. A lot of people really, really, really loved the second book as well. So yeah, the main reason why Lucien Folter came back is because the CEO from my publishing house said he has to come back. That was it.
And the Lucien Folter is a similar little to Hannibal Lecter.
No, he's a bit different. I know that there've been a few comparisons, of course, because simply because of the way it is. He's been caught and he's interviewed in prison and stuff. But there are two different kinds of killers. There are different kinds. Lucien is doing something very different. But yes, there have been comparisons. Yes.
And what did you want to show using Lucien Folter as an explain?
What did I? Sorry.
What did you want to show using the Lucien Folter?
Nothing really. It's like none of my books, like nothing that I write. I am trying to pass on a message. I am not trying to raise awareness. I just write a story. All my stories, in my view, in my idea, my stories are just stories. That's it. I actually call them trash stories. Are just stories for you to read while you're waiting for the bus or while you're in the train. They're not stories for you to think about it very much. They're just police stories. That's it. So none of my books did I ever want. Yes, they talk about real topics. They talk about real mental health issues. They talk about real things that can happen, like bullying and problems in the childhood and all that kind of stuff. But the idea behind them is just a story. I'm not trying to pass on anything. So when I created Lucien, I just wanted to create another villain, because every one of my books has a villain. Every one of my books has a killer. So I was just creating another killer. But for some reason, a lot of people really, really like Lucien. So yeah.
And can we also say that Lucien Folter was one of the hard opponents for Robert and Carlos?
Yeah, obviously he's pretty much the nemesis. Yeah, he's the one, because all the other ones, they caught and everything, and Lucien is the one that came back. So yeah, you can easily say that. Yes.
And how important is building tension for you?
Building
Tension.
Oh, of course it is. It's a police story. So of course every police story, you have to have the tension. You have to have the suspense. If you take the suspense away, then it's not a thriller. So yeah, it is very important, of course.
Mhm. And which book in the series was the hard test for you to write? Which easiest?
Genesis. So
Why?
the one Genesis, the one before,
Mhm.
that was the hardest for me to write because so I wrote it. I had just lost my partner. My partner has just passed, so my mental health state was very bad. I was in a dark place. I was grieving. I was um in a lot of emotional pain and hurt. So when I started writing, my head was in a bad place, and I also wrote it during the lockdown, which the lockdown was very difficult for everyone. So you was completely isolated, couldn't go out, couldn't see your friends, you couldn't do anything. So to me, it was a double hit. One, I was grieving, I was in a dark place because I had lost my partner. Two, I couldn't see friends, I was completely isolated. So when I wrote that book, there's a lot of my own darkness and my own pain in that book. And it obviously talks about mental health issues, talks about things that I work through, which is depression, and things like that. So it was difficult to write. It was especially because I didn't have a release. Because my release, what I usually do to relax or something. I love going clubbing and I go dancing. So I go to techno clubs and psytrance clubs and drum and bass clubs and rock clubs. But I love to dance. And during the lockdown, you couldn't go out at all. So I didn't have any escape. I was just writing, writing, writing. So it became very dark and very heavy. And that's why Genesis is in the series is by far the darkest book.
Mhm. And and what did you show to the watch in your books?
What is the
Uh,
worst?
what did you want to show in your books?
Again, nothing. It's just a story. Like I said, every time I write, I'm not trying to pass on a message. I'm not trying to raise awareness. I'm just writing a story to entertain. So the main idea of all of my books is to entertain. Is for you to read while you're on the beach, for you to read while you're going to work, while you're waiting for the dentist or something like that. It's nothing, it's not a textbook. It's just entertainment. So that's it.
Mhm. Okay. And on this moment, you wrote 13 books of the series Robert Hunter. How many more parts of this series would you like to write?
Um, I get asked that quite a lot. I don't have a specific number, and I will say what my agents always say to me is, like I said, so my agent also agents Lee Child, who has over 20 books with Jack Reacher,
Yeah,
and it's the
yeah.
same. It's the same thing that my agent said to me. She said, "Look, as long as readers want to read Hunter stories, give them Hunter stories." I love writing Robert Hunter. I really do. So as long as the readers want to carry on reading Robert Hunter, I'm gonna carry on writing Robert Hunter. Like I said, my book that's coming out next year is my first non-Hunter book. It's a standalone. That's gonna come out next year. But I'm already working on the next Hunter book, book number 14, that's gonna come out in 2027, I think. But like I said, I don't have a specific number. As long as people still want to read Hunter, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna carry on writing Hunter.
Mhm. Okay. And how did you relax after writing each book?
No, well, not after writing. I mean, I used to go on holidays, but like since I lost my partner, like I said, I haven't. So I don't. I don't do anything specific. I just But to me, it's not really a attention thing about writing a book. Um, every day I finish writing quite early, then I read a little bit. I try to read a little bit. I watch a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of films, and I go out on the weekends. But I don't do anything specific just to unwind from writing a book. I love writing, so I don't do anything specific.
Mhm. And do you have any plans to write a new series with a different main hero?
I don't have any plans to write a different series, but like I said, the book that is coming out next year is a different book. It's not a Robert Hunter. It's not even a police story. It's a completely different story. It's about a woman who she's running away from her husband because her husband or her ex-husband is a very violent person. So she's running away from him. But there's no police. Nobody dies in the book. So that is my first standalone, but I have no plans for another series. It might happen, maybe one day. But at the moment, like I said, I love writing Hunter. And if people still want to read Hunter stories, I'm going to give them Hunter stories.
Mm-hmm. And you think that the Carlos Garcia will be good main hero?
I don't know. Some people have asked me, said, why don't you write a book showing Carlos before he joined Hunter, or just Carlos alone? I don't know. Maybe there's so many different avenues that you can go. So I'm not sure. Maybe, like I said, at the moment I'm writing the new one, and the new one is still Hunter and Garcia together. So yeah, maybe there's so many different choices you can have. So we'll see.
For sure, it will be interested.
Yeah, you will be, I think.
And the last question.
Okay.
Well, what about the new books with Robert Hunter?
What do you mean? What about?
What story?
It's Hunter chasing a serial killer. it's the same thing, but it's not different. It's just another part of criminal psychology which I never talked about, which I think it's very interesting for a lot of people. So yeah, it's a new serial killer, somebody that appeared in Los Angeles with a very horrible crime, and it sort of becomes a game for the killer. But yeah, I'm writing it at the moment, and I guess that's all I can say.
Okay, Chris, and as I said, it was the last question, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
It was a big honor to make the interview, meet you, and talk with you. And I wish you the next very good parts of series of Robert Hunter, and I hope this series will be as long as possible.
Oh, thank you so much, and the pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope everything goes well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very glad.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'll see you. Bye.
See you.